everybody, Paul Mack here. I've got a viewer project from Dave in Virginia, and Dave says, a few months back I asked for your advice on finding a level for my barn. With that advice and a vision, I set out on my journey to build my first barn. Welp, I still ain't done, but 2/3 of it are up. And here's a picture of what Dave had going there. You can see he's got a fine looking start on that pole barn. It looks like Dave has used cedar poles for his pole barn there, which is a great natural post or pole option for building any pole barn. It's been used traditionally for decades and decades in North America. And you can see he's going to put a floor in it because he's got his floor joists installed, ready for whatever he decides to put down, whether it's as simple as plywood decking or tongue and groove boards or, shiplap boards, kind of an old-fashioned look. That would look really good in there. Also, you can tell up high there, he's got good 45-degree bracing on all the poles there. So I'm sure that's sturdy, especially with the framework of the roof holding it all together. And he's got his horizontal runners from poles to poles, and it looks like it is all ready for siding. In this picture here, you can see the roof and the ridge cap are on, so it is technically in the dry at that point. And look here, the dog can't wait to sleep under this thing. You see him down there? He's wishing it were a front porch, but he'll take sleeping under the old pole barn. You know what? This structure would make a great workshop. I'm not really sure what Dave's intentions for it are, what he's going to be using it for, but a structure like this, especially with that floor in it, would make a great place for keeping your tools, a little workshop or weekend projects or, day-to-day projects, whatever you wanted to, or even an office. You could put your office out there if you're a businessman. So it'd be great for just about anything. And then sometime later, Dave wrote this. I was wondering what your thoughts were on T111 siding. I would love to put board and batten siding, but don't have resources. Also, what would you treat it with? Paint/oil-based stain. Well, Dave, as you can see in this next picture, he did put up some T111 siding, and it looks great. Now, unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure that T111 siding is treated siding, so it should last your lifetime, Dave. I think it would last my lifetime. It will turn gray, however. I had a friend who had a rather substantial sized barn sided with T111 siding, and it was actually put on by the owner before my friend. It had turned gray, it had weathered, which looks good to me. But it was holding up fine. Now, I am probably, Dave, not the one to ask about treating wood with preservatives, stains, or whatever, because I generally don't do that. When I put up board and batten walls, like for instance for this pole barn workshop here, the only thing I treat it with is respect. Now, I'll take that back. Occasionally, like in summertime when it's very dry, like I pick the driest month, usually about July or August, and I might go around the bottom with some spent motor oil and a mixture of half motor oil, spent motor oil, and kerosene, and spray the bottoms there just to keep termites unhappy. And it works very well. So, for whatever that's worth, there you go. That's my advice on treating wood. Mainly, I just treat it with respect. Seems to work. Now, as you mentioned, Dave, painting the barn would be an option to preserve it if you wanted to. Of course, once you start that painting, you're going to have to paint it every now and then, when it starts to flake or chip off, unless you like that look, which sometimes old painted barns, when they start to weather and that paint comes off, to me, they look even better. I mean, somebody's going to come along and want to paint an oil painting of your barn. You're going to want to paint it. They're going to want to paint a picture of it because they love the way it looks. So painting it could be an option. They sell at the hardware store, they sell the old dark red barn paint. That's kind of I guess that's more of a northern tradition. It's not really a southern thing to paint your barn. Seems like most of the barns in the South were just left to weather. And also dark green. That's not a bad paint color either for a barn. With your typical white trim, red barn or green barn or whatever, that looks pretty good, you know, somewhat traditional, maybe not so much for the South, but that's a good look if you like that kind of thing, but you're going to have to paint it again ever so often. Now, maybe some of you have some advice for Dave about treating or staining this T111 siding so that it retains that color. I guess that's possible, just like a deck. If you stained it fairly often, maybe it'll keep, if you like that, you know, light brown look, you stain it and perhaps it'll keep that look and keep it from weathering. I really don't know much about stains. It's not my area. So if any of you do, why don't you leave your advice in the comment section below, and I'm sure Dave and perhaps you would enjoy reading that and benefit from learning what you have to know. You can see in this photo here that Dave has installed a sliding door, which is a great option for getting larger things in there if the need arises, especially if you're using that as a workshop and you're building larger items like a dining table or something like that. A sliding door would be a great option because, you know, big doors put a lot of strain on hinges, so that sliding door is really fine for that. In this view, you can kind of see the side shed, which it looks like he did an excellent job. And look how much space. From that picture, I can't tell. It almost looks wider than the barn itself there, but there's a lot of space there. He's already got his lawnmower and a ladder and some other things parked under there. And all it is simply 2 cedar poles that he extended away from the building, set in the ground, has a sill that connects them, and then the rafters on top going back up to the main building and fastened to the main building, and then the roofing on top. A side shed is just such an inexpensive option for gaining more covered space. If you need to store equipment or whatever, your motorbike or your boat or farm equipment or whatever, implements or whatever. So, and maybe you have a shed or a barn and you've got a side of it that has no side shed, and maybe that would be a good option for you to gain more covered space. I've got a video you might be interested in. It's called Adding Side Sheds to a Barn or Outbuilding. So give that a look. It'll show you kind of how to give you some options for adding on a side shed to your existing building. And maybe this has encouraged some of you. You have a need for an outbuilding or a workshop or just a little getaway pole barn that you could go out and mess around on the weekends or in the evenings. Maybe it's inspired you to build your own pole barn. Or maybe you're in the middle of a pole barn structure and maybe you've gotten some ideas from the Farm Hands Companion channel. If that's the case, go out, take a few pictures of your project and email them to me along with permission to use them, and we might feature them on another edition of the Farm Hands Companion Viewer Project Show. So make sure you do that. And it doesn't have to be a pole barn. It could be anything that the Farm Hands Companion channel perhaps has inspired you to build. A chicken house, chicken nest, fencing, just whatever. Send those pictures in to paulmack@farmhandscompanion.com, and we'll see about getting them on a future show. And before I go, one more thing. Remember, there's my book, Building an Old-Fashioned Pole Barn. I'll have the link maybe up here or maybe at the end of the video, and for sure in the description to this video. So make sure you take a look at that. Until next time, I'm Paul Mack, and I will talk at you later.